This is Jeff Neville for Selective Imagery. Welcome to Photos of the Week episode... what? Huh? Oh, I decided to change the name of this episode to Photography is for the Birds, or is it? This is a little longer segment than I would usually have for Photos of the Week, so I decided to not do Photos of the Week this week and give you this topic instead. We're going to start off with what you're used to seeing from my channel. Birds, birds, and birds. But everything isn't about birds. I've had different videos talking about shaking things up a bit, changing what one should do to refresh themselves and keep themselves from getting stale in any one genre. So as you're watching some of these bird photos, eventually it's going to change to something different. But I didn't want to shock your system too much or too fast, so I figured I would start out with birds, just so you're a little more comfortable. But like I was saying, you do need to do some other things. Sometimes even get sneaky and just take a picture of the bird's feet. That's always something different. And then eventually get away from birds. Take a squirrel. Oh, squirrels are so exciting. We all know that. You want to take lots of pictures of squirrels, and you can find them in your backyard. Or go to the beach. Try to get a ghost crab. I think they're named that because when you try to take their picture, they just disappear. Get some butterfly shots. You might have some place where you can go where they have butterflies on display. In this case, an aviary for butterflies. This particular shot was at Brook Green Gardens in South Carolina. Switch over. Take some flower pictures once in a while. They don't have to all be macros. You can just get a lens that's good with close-up photography, and that'll be fine. Here we're just capturing some dew on this dandelion. This particular shot I took while I was waiting for birds. There wasn't much going on. I looked at the plant life near me. I liked this shot, so I took it. This one, I was just taking a walk and ran into this plant. Now, you can always switch to man's best friend. Now, whether it be your dog, everybody knows my dog Patches, my best friend, or you may have a cat, you may have a lizard, you may have a snake, you may have a bird, whatever. Take pictures of it. It's always fun to have some of them in the house. Now, my dog likes this one the best because that's where she takes over at night and she lets my wife and I stay with her. Take pictures. This is my own backyard in South Carolina when we had snow one day. I had to get a picture of that. Here's the front of the house. It's pretty rare when you get snow down here, and if you do, 99% of the time, it's gone the next day. Do some night photography. This was in a short, long weekend trip my wife and I took to Las Vegas. And as I say, Las Vegas is so much more than candy. Ha ha ha. I love this billboard sign that switched back and forth for the Pepsi. Really, really cool. Very creative. Gets your attention, doesn't it? This is scary. All right, now I'm showing you some pictures from where I grew up in Connecticut. Just drive around. You know, you don't know what you're going to find. Take things of interest. You know, who knows how long this caboose was sitting here, what looks like in the woods. Now, I wish I was smart enough to take a picture of the placard, which I should do, and I recommend that you do so you remember what you took a picture of. I saw this on a motorcycle ride one day, and I stopped and took a bunch of pictures of it, but I'll be darned if I remember exactly where it was. But something catches your eye, you know, bring your camera with you, or bring a small camera with you, just so you could take a snapshot. I love pictures of old cars on farms, in the woods, abandoned cars. I love getting pictures like that. You know, railroad crossings are always interesting. You know, sometimes you find areas that are have waterfalls or streams or whatever, covered bridges. Those are always fun to get. An old stand for fruits and vegetables on a farm. An old barn. Just drive around. You'd be amazed what you could find. Freshen up things a little bit. Change your perspective. Now we leave Connecticut, we go to the Big E. Okay, I like this. It was, you know, basically shirts, examples of shirts this guy was selling, and he did, you know, airbrushing. Go to Cape Cod. Go to Maine. Okay, this is in Maine. It's a series of photos that I took when my wife and I went to Maine. We went to Acadia National Park. So this is the top of Cadillac Mountain in Acadia National Park. My God, beautiful, beautiful place. And sometimes when you're looking down, you can see cruise ships from Canada that are in the water. It's really, really neat. A lot of walking, got to be careful, a lot of rocks, obviously. Then you hit the beach. I like landscapes and seascapes. I used to do that a lot. And then you have carriage rides that you could take within Acadia National Park. Of course, you have, you know, lighthouses in Maine, so you got to get as many of those as you can. Now, this is a boat trip to get to what they call Cranberry Isle. So there's a lot of lobster fishing here. This is where they process, you know, food and the lobsters. I liked all the different color crates and the reflections in the water. This was just walking through the neighborhood. Nothing like a pile of wood to split to keep you warm in the winter, hang out your laundry, and if you got to get away, there's your boat. This house was just covered with growth. Now, this is some shots driving around in South Carolina. Old gas stations. Things that are left basically on the side of the road. And then the next shots coming up are from this past weekend. And I did some street photography with a friend. So this is in Myrtle Beach, within walking distance of the beach, actually. Runs parallel to the beach. And it's just fun getting these shots and taking a walk. Like I always say, get out of the house, get off the couch, grab your camera, go get some shots. They don't all have to be birds. This shot coming up is interesting. This flower was growing out in between the new decking that they put down. And it was not put there for photographic reasons. It was just there, growing up from underneath. You got this huge Ferris wheel, and all those little cabs that you go into are air conditioned for your comfort. Don't ask what you're paying to go on that. Always somewhere to eat in Myrtle Beach. Hi, this is Jeff Neville for selective imagery. Before I show you these last images on this video that you've been watching, I'm going to talk a little bit about starting your own business. A lot of you that watch my channel also watch Chuck Talks from AP Studios or Vahagan on Vahography Talks. And there's always questions that people throw out during the chats that say, I'd like to start my own business. What do I have to do? Can I start my own business doing wildlife photography? Can I start a business doing wedding photography? And the answer, of course, is yes, you can. But I had a brief stint trying to start a photo company that was many years ago when I lived in Connecticut, to sell artwork for the home, affordable artwork for the home. And I went through the whole thing and had an LLC and whatnot, and it never really got off the ground due to some family situations that came up, and I basically just dissolved it. I've thought about doing it again now that I've moved to South Carolina. And I think when you are thinking about starting a business, important thing is decide, are you looking to have this business to be your only source of income? That you're going to put your kids through college doing this? Or are you looking at it as, like in my case, I'm retired. So if I were to start a business again, it would be mostly just to sell prints, and it would be supplemental income. And I've spent a lot of time. I have business cards. I've got cost analysis, cost breakdowns on everything for the size prints that I'd want to do. I've looked at sites that I could create basically a portfolio and people could order a print. And there are sites out there that are photography centric where you can establish a link with photo processing companies so the person can look at your images, click on a box, order an 8x12, say whether they want it to be metallic print or canvas or whatever they want, and it would go right to that company and they would do it, print it, ship it right directly to them. You're never touching it. Now, of course, sites that allow that commerce, like Zenfolio would be one of them, they charge a 7% fee on top of what you pay monthly to have that website with your photos on it. So you have to look at costs. And me being retired, if your work is similar to mine and you're trying to do it to support your family, you have to charge more than I would if I'm just looking at it to be supplemental income. So I could undercut you pretty easy. And you have to look at the market. You have to look what other people are providing for services where you live, what they charge, and you have to look at, you have to be competitive, obviously. Now, if you want to be a wedding photographer, I'm sure Vahagan would tell you, be a second shooter. Try to tie in with an established photographer near where you live. Now, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, be willing to say, hey, you don't know if I could shoot anything. You don't know me from anybody. You don't know if I'm any good or not. So maybe you cut a deal and you say, look, I'll shoot at a couple of your weddings for free as a second shooter. And after I do a few weddings, we'll sit down and talk. If you like what I'm doing for you, we'll try to work out a payment arrangement if you still want me to continue to work with you or work for you. And don't be afraid, and realize the fact that you might have to do some stuff for free, at least a few times anyway, so that you can demonstrate your ability. And then you learn as much as you can from that person, and over a period of time, you may feel comfortable where you could break off and start doing wedding photography on your own. Now, if you want to be a wildlife photographer, beautiful images are great, but what's hurt the photography industry immensely is stock photos. I know a friend that has photos in some stock agencies, and sometimes, somebody buys a photo that he has in there for 35 cents. Sometimes he gets $5. And until you hit a certain amount of money, and maybe it's like $50 or whatever, they won't even cut you a check. So you could have $25 worth of sales, and you could be waiting forever, depending on how popular your stuff is, to even get your first check. And you're not making any money doing that. For people that I meet at craft fairs, the cost of setting up a booth, they might be selling 8x12s for, say, anywhere from $25 to $35, depending on whether they put a mat on the front of the print and they put it in a nice photo clear envelope that's acid free, and they sell it to you like that. And they're not making much money. The only way they're making some money is if they invest in a printer and they're printing out the prints themselves. If they're sending them out to get done, believe me, I have all the cost breakdowns. You're not making a lot of money. And if you factor in your editing time and your travel time and your gas and everything else, you're going to be lucky if you're making the minimum wage or the average minimum wage down here in South Carolina of like $10 an hour. So you're certainly not going to feed your family on that. You look at well-known photographers, and if you go on their websites and you look at prints that they sell, most of them will not. It won't be matted. It won't have mat board behind it. It won't be mounted on anything. They sell you the print only. And those prints, depending on whether they're limited editions or they're just a standard production run and they print them all the time, you could be paying for a larger print, let's say 20 by 30 or even the next size down, you could be paying $800 to $2,000 depending on the artist. And you might say, holy cow, who's got that kind of money? Well, there are people that have that kind of money. And depending on what your costs are, your cost of goods, you may very quickly realize that you're not going to be able to sell that 12 by 18 print for $50. You may be able to do it if you're retired like me and you're just looking for a little extra cash, but you're not going to be able to do it and support your family. I'll give you some examples. I live in South Carolina. So just the taxes alone. Here's things you got to consider. You got the federal business tax is 15%. The state business tax is 5%. And this is where I am. I live in Horry County. They charge you another tax of 2.9%. And then you have to cover, if you want to cover your software fees, if you're using the Adobe plan or whatever and you're paying a monthly fee, you would like to build in the cost of that into what you charge for your product. You've got a business personal property tax. And this is the one that'll PO off of you, all you guys. If say you own $20,000, $30,000 worth of camera gear, and you owned it before you even started thinking about having a business. As soon as you want to make it a business, the state is going to want to charge you tax on that equipment that you already own. And yeah, it'll depreciate depending on the age of it. You'll get some depreciation factor in there, but you're basically paying anything that you would use in that business, a printer, your lenses, everything photographic, your computer desk, all that stuff is part of business personal property tax that you have to pay. Then if you decide to go to a website and you make up a portfolio and you use somebody like Zenfolio, let's say, and I'm not picking on Zenfolio, any photocentric entity that allows you to basically create a product line and tie it in with one or more print services where people could go in and view your photo, pick what size they want, pick whether they want glossy or matte, whether they want a canvas or what have you, and basically place the order, goes through the third party, gets delivered to their house, and your profit goes, you get a check once a month or whatever for whatever you made. You have to consider, um, you need to insure your gear. You want to cover the costs of that. Do you need liability insurance if you're doing a wedding? You have the cost of that. You have to create either an LLC for your business and have a legal business name and whatnot registered with the state. You got to pay your sales taxes on your product. If you have a storefront, you're going to be paying for that. Um, it's very, business cards, marketing materials. So now you can see why when someone says, like, they go to a photographer that says does newborn photos, and they come to your house and they say, "Oh, I'm going to give you this, this, and this, and it's going to cost you $600 or $800," and everybody goes, "Oh my God, $800!" Well, there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. They have all these bills associated and all these taxes they have to pay. So you have to look at this whole thing. And right now, for me personally, I've decided that, you know, I'm at 35% of my costs would be for just covering taxes. And I'm not even talking about adding a little bit extra to put aside to maybe fund a trip of which I could take photographs that I might be able to sell. And most professional photographers are building that into their costs for what they charge. So much is for gear replacement, gear maintenance, being able to travel to 3 or 4 places a year that most people don't get to go to build up their portfolio and sell you images that more than likely you're not going to be able to get because you can't afford to go there. So there's a lot of work involved that you have to do, a lot of serious thinking that you have to do before you jump into it. So, but don't be scared to do it. I mean, I think what I'm going to do is I don't know how long on this earth I have, but I'm going to pad uh, my photos that I like for another, I don't know, maybe 10 years. And if I get to the point where I'm not as mobile as I used to be, then that's a time where I might sit down and say it's time to just sell some of my work. In the meantime, I'll just print out some stuff like this. Or this. And I'll sell it at a craft fair. I mean, I could sell product once every quarter and not have to be a registered business or charge taxes on it. But that's going to vary state by state. But good luck to you. Don't give up on the dream, but realize you got a lot of work to do and a lot of thinking to do before you dive in to do it. Even more so if you're looking at doing it as your only source of income and you want to leave the job that you're in now. Start off slow. As my recommendation is, start off slow. Look to do it as a supplemental income, and then if that's really taken off good, you can decide to take the risk and quit your full-time job and go dive into it full-time. So that's it. We'll continue with the slideshow. Here we are at the end. I'm going to show you some wedding photos that I've taken. I did 4 weddings over my lifetime as gifts to friends. And I did my best friend's wedding. I did one of his daughter's wedding. These are pictures of my wife's best friend's daughter's wedding. And so obviously, you can do it. Wedding photography, I think, is very stressful. I tip my hat off to my friend Vahagan that he chose to do that as a way of making a living. Kudos to you, my friend. You do great work, and I love your channel. And Chuck, you're doing some great portrait work in your studio, in your house. Keep it up. Enjoy what you're doing as well. But, you know, get out there and take some shots. And don't be afraid to try things out. And, you know, and maybe you do some free weddings for some people too to get the experience. But I would recommend try to get a second shooter type of arrangement. Now, believe it or not being a professional, when I did these, I had a checklist, and I had the person check off every type of combination of picture that they wanted. So that's about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, it's longer than I thought I was going to do it. And until next time, enjoy life, capture some of it.